Okay, here we go. Last chapter of Hope in the Holler. Chapter 35. This is it. All right, here we go. Are you sure she's not there? I asked for the third time. It'd been 4 months since the day of the hearing. 3 months, 25 days since I left convict Holler. I flipped the window switch back and forth, sending the window up and down, up and down. Gilbert had written to say Samantha Rose, Hoyt, and Uncle Philson had loaded up the Buick and left town a few weeks after the hearing. But I couldn't stop worrying that I'd see her. John smiled from the driver's seat. We're sure she hasn't been seen since she hightailed it out of town. Where did she go? Don't worry about Samantha Rose, Anita said. Last we heard, the whole family had moved in with her sister on the other side of the state. I wondered if Angel had heard, or if he'd understand that the Savage girls were finally together. John turned off the highway and onto the dirt road. Conley Hollow, at last. He looked at his watch. 1 hour and 48 minutes, door to door. That's not bad. Can you stop here for a second? I flipped the switch again to lower the glass and inhaled. I'd forgotten how good it smells. I turned my head, taking it all in. It really does look different. They exchanged smiles. The pictures didn't do it justice. Not at all. Dusty Road was the same, but the entire neighborhood had been bush-hogged. No more briars and brambles lined the ditches. The biggest changes were at the top of the hill. All the trash and old junk had been hauled off. Not one rusty old car was left. Even Spotted One was lying outside a fresh new dog kennel. I stared at the house. The porch was reattached and the old warped wood had been replaced. The flowers I'd planted stood out in bright, colorful waves against the new siding. I can't believe it, I said. Anita laughed. Do you like it? Oh, yes, I said. When the Bowmans had first asked if I wanted to fix up the house, I'd been confused. Why? It's your family home, John had said. It's in pretty bad shape. The bones are good. I don't see any reason to let it rot. But what would we do with it? Now, that'll be up to you, he said. We could sell it or rent it. Just hang on to it until you're older and decide then. What about Gilbert and Gran? Or Frank and Bailey and their mom? Could I let them live there? Anita had smiled at that. In fact, smiling seemed her favorite thing to do. Absolutely. It had been helpful, those first awkward weeks of getting to know one another, to have something to focus on. Anita and I had pored over paint colors and light fixtures, and John had spread out blueprints on the dining room table. But seeing it finished in real life was a whole different story. The screen door opened and Frank and Bailey ran out, followed by Gilbert and Camille. She's here, Gilbert yelled. Gran, Mrs. Barnes, and Mrs. Rodriguez, and even Edgar were there. He came outside and stood on the porch, watching as I got out and hugged everybody. Can you believe it? Gilbert said. Me? Living in your house? I know, I said. Which room did you take? Gilbert smiled. Hoyt's, of course. Frank and Bailey are in yours. Both of them? He took the billboard wall out. Mrs. Barnes said she's going to put it back if they don't quit fighting. We'd kept Flipper Johnson busy by writing long letters back and forth in the months since I'd left. I knew that Camille's dad might open a second restaurant in Lexington next year, which hopefully meant I'd get to see her some on weekends, and that Gilbert had gotten into the GT classes. Even Frank and Bailey had sent me a note with a drawing of their cat. I told them about my new school and how John had built window boxes for me to plant so I could see flowers from every room, and how the Bowmans had already taken me back to visit Andrew so I could see Hannah and check on Mama's grave. Guess what? Camille said. We can start emailing each other soon. You're getting computers? Gilbert snorted. Nah, but Camille's daddy talked a bunch of business owners into donating more of them for technology class. They had a fundraiser to buy books for the library, too. What happened to private school? Camille smiled. I changed my mind. If I left, That'd make Gilbert the smartest kid in the school. His head would get so big it'd probably explode. You mean my smile would be so big it'd explode, Gilbert grumbled. I'm glad to see not everything has changed. I pulled a picture out of my pocket and handed it to Gilbert. Here, Camille. Here, Camille said. You were missing me. Whatever. He grabbed it out of my hand, took one look and grinned. Look at you. Haven't been gone 3 months and already sitting in a fancy canoe like you belong there. John came around the car and stood next to me. Baby says you're quite the fisherman, Gilbert. If I bring my rod next time, will you give me a few pointers? Gilbert pulled his shoulders back and stood up straighter. I guess I could give you a tip or two. I'd appreciate it. Nothing like being on the river in the middle of the woods. You know what I mean. That's what I've been trying to tell everybody. Gilbert turned to me and whispered, he may be cityfied, but at least he's playing with a full deck. Gran yelled for us all to come inside while the biscuits were still warm. I stood in the kitchen staring. This looked like something out of a magazine. A round wooden table sat in the middle, surrounded by real chairs, the kind with cushions for seats, and the beat-up old linoleum had been replaced. The cabinets all had doors. There wasn't a dirty dish to be found. Even the refrigerator was new. Mrs. Barnes smiled. It's the prettiest kitchen in all of Kentucky, if you ask me. Anita smoothed my hair. Wavy chose the yellow. The adults sat in the kitchen while the rest of us took our plates to the living room and watched cartoons with Frank and Bailey on the big television that Samantha Rosa bought with my first check. I can't believe she didn't take that with her. She would have had to go through my mother first, Camille said. Gilbert put his plate down on the floor. I forgot to show you something. Come here. I followed him to the hallway. Anita had arranged for all the photos of my mom to be sent to us, and the walls were now empty except for one large frame. Gilbert stood in front of it, grinning. It was the front page of the Farley Gazette. The headlines read, Chaos erupts at Country Courthouse, and underneath was a black and white photo of Gilbert and Mrs. Chipman. It's kind of long, Gilbert said, but here's the best line. Gilbert F. Miller, pictured, was responsible for a dramatic day at the Farley County Courthouse. Due to his actions, a young ward of the state was reunited with her adoptive family after 11 years. Young ward? They didn't even use my name. Gilbert grinned. At least you got mentioned. They forgot Camille totally. That's awesome. Did your mom see it? Are you kidding? We had to send her extra copies because hers was so worn out from carrying it around all the time. He stared at the framed print. Gran's renting out the trailer to a fellow from the mine, he said softly. So we'll be able to buy a car and visit her soon. Anita motioned for me from the kitchen. You finished? I nodded and followed her outside. She opened the trunk and handed me a pot and a small shovel. Take all the time you need. When you're done, do you want to walk up to the cemetery, then maybe visit with Angel? That'd be great. She went inside while I knelt on the ground by the steps. It wouldn't take long to get a piece of the peony. I made a small dent in the dirt around the root. I'd do all the things Mama had hoped I would, not because of a list she left behind, because of the love and hope she planted in me for 11 years. I put the shovel into the dirt and cut through the roots, dumping a large portion into her pot beside. Come on, Wavy, Gilbert yelled from the backyard. Train's coming. I got you a rock to throw. I stood up and put the pot on the porch steps. It was past blooming season, but one faded blossom remained. The scent of it drifted on the breeze, tickling my nose. Mama couldn't wait to get out of Conley Holler, but I thought she'd like it now. I looked down the hill toward the river. It didn't just look different, it felt different. I could see that there was always hope in the holler. Where I ended up wasn't as important as who I ended up with. I didn't have her, and I would feel that not forever, but that wasn't the end of my story. Wavy, Camille, Gilbert, Bailey, Frank, Bauman. I could make all kinds of great words out of those. Words like love, family, life, and living, to name a few. Mama had been right. Good friends could be like a family. I'm finding it, Mama, I whispered. I'm making a good life. The coal train came around the bend, its whistle blowing, and I imagined her smiling, watching me down below, living. So she ended up with the Baumans, who she started with 11 years ago. And we'll touch base and talk about how you feel about the ending and how you feel about the book when we return together after Thanksgiving break. Take care. See you later.